So Definity, which previously was Economical Mutual Insurance Company, started in what was then Berlin, Ontario, which is now Kitchener, Ontario. And the notion of neighbor helping neighbor, like they wanted to find a way where they could protect each other from fires and floods. So they started this mutual company. And the roots of our values of community, of integrity, and of justice really stems even as far back as that time. And when Economical decided to go public and become a company, they had to have conversations about how that money was going to be disbursed. And we were part of that disbursement conversation. And so the company, or at that time, the policyholders agreed that $100 million would be set aside for all the future policyholders that would no longer have the opportunity to be part of a mutual company. And this was to leave a legacy for those past, present, and future. And that's how we came about. And as a result of that, we then struck a partnership with Definity Insurance Company.
Those initial values of neighbor helping neighbor continue to sort of shape and inform what the foundation became, right? We see that still in the values that drive us today. Ensuring that as a foundation, we're committing to communities deeply and showing up in service and in partnership. That really unique relationship, honestly, that the foundation has with Definity Insurance Company continues to be a place of opportunity and a place of strength for us. We leverage their knowledge and their expertise. We do things like co-funding partnerships across different parts of the country. What's next? After working together, over the last 5 years in this partnership, we're exploring what's next. And we're looking forward to something bigger, something brighter, something that steps fully into what new possibilities we could envision together are.
Definity Foundation started operating early 2022. We were in the midst of a global pandemic, the likes we haven't seen before, not at least in my lifetime. We were in the midst of a huge economic crisis, and we were in the midst of anti-Black racism cryouts that was happening everywhere as a result of the George Floyd murders. So we were coming into this space as a new foundation, entering a system that already existed. So for us, we really had to think through, how do we build institutions, processes, and systems that were responsive and relevant to the people we were going to serve? And for me, it was more, like how we show up was so critical. Just as important as what we fund is how we show up in the space. So we were really thoughtful in thinking about, what do we really believe in? What are the core beliefs that's going to drive us?
Yeah, I think those beliefs have continued to come through in our work so deeply. Things like committing all of our capital in alignment with our strategy and alignment to having an impact, and being flexible and responsive to the needs of our partners, and building trust with our partners and grantees so that they know that we're there with them, and we're able to respond and learn together and enable them to do the work that's important.
Some of those other core beliefs were like really maximizing resources, making sure that we name Black, Indigenous, and racialized community as priority populations.
Yeah, not shying away from naming those things is critical. Not just so that we're crystal clear in who we're working with, but so the communities that we're working to serve can see themselves represented and valued in organizations like ours.
And the other big thing for me was really getting to the root cause, right? Like we said, we're going deep, we're going to address the roots of inequality, because otherwise we're just tinkering at the edges. If we don't make equity forefront in terms of what the change we want to see and really address the root causes that's causing inequities, then we're just playing around.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's about systems change, right? It's about transformation, and it's about committing for the long term to a society that works for more people.
Self-determination, letting people make decisions that matter to them, and not for us to push things on people. And that happens because we've also made a commitment to listening to learn, to understand, so we can respond, so that we can do better in every given possible scenario.
It's about openness between staff and board, between the foundation and our partners and communities we serve. It's about shared decision making, where we build trust between the board and leadership and make those difficult decisions. And it's about co-creation, where we recognize that all of us bring different expertise, different knowledge, and that's what drives us to those impactful initiatives that we're supporting. Leadership for us, right, is also about an unwavering commitment to equity and to justice. We recognize that there are many communities in this country who still don't have a fair shot. And it's a responsibility that we take very serious in showing up alongside Indigenous communities, alongside Black folks, alongside newcomers and others who are experiencing marginalization in this country.
When I think of our leadership approach, I feel like we're so values-driven and we're adaptive. Like our values of community, integrity, and justice are at the forefront of everything we do. What does it mean? Now, how does it show up in our behavior? And that's true on a board level, it's true on a staff level, it guides every decision we make as a foundation. We said we want to be a learning organization. That is the only way we're really going to achieve impact, is by learning and adapting.
And we take risks. We don't shy away from those difficult conversations, and we act with courage because we know it takes courage to have the sort of impact we're aspiring for.
Leadership is not top down. The board doesn't do that. I don't do that. Our team doesn't do it to our partners. We're in this together to achieve the impact we want to see. I think we've got a great relationship. I think there's such deep trust and transparency between the CEO and the board. I bring challenges to the board anytime, like I'm grappling with issues, and I feel like the board really helps me out in understanding it without judgment.
I agree. I think trust has been so key for us as an organization, the trust the board has in you, and that's a two-way street, right? You bring us ideas, you challenge us, and we challenge you right back, and it's all out of a place of mutual respect, a commitment to dialogue, and a commitment to really achieving the mission and the impact that we set out to do. But that comes from a place of relationship and trust. I think you can't do this work without enjoying each other's company, about laughing together and spending time outside of the day-to-day of the work. And so I think for us, the board and the staff, we're intentional about having fun together, learning together, and laughing together.
It's important to share what we're grounding learning on. Because early on, we were so thoughtful about how we would approach learning, and we said, okay, we're going to learn for accountability, for decision making, and for long-term impact.
You know, I remember early conversations about our investment portfolio. There was a range of perspectives on the board, but we committed to learning together about how do we use impact capital or other forms of capital to deliver on our goals, and the board perspective evolved and changed.
Yeah, and I remember those days as well, and we've come a long way since then, and it's really because of this desire to understand, to learn, and to do better. Mm-hmm. Our commitment to learning is after every round of grant making, we actually send a survey out to our partners. And as you know, last year again, for the first time, we hired a third-party firm to help us know how we're doing as a partner, how we're doing as a foundation. And so some of the things we've learned is about transparency. We put our community investment framework on the website, our strategy roadmaps on the website. So just little things to have more transparency. We still can do a lot more, and I think that's the goal for future years. But that's one thing we heard loud and clear that we really want to improve on. The other one is really going at the pace of community. So we have timelines that doesn't necessarily work for them, and we have had to realize that's okay. Like, go with their pace when they're ready, and then just come alongside and usher it through our process in that way.
Yeah, I mean, we hear it all the time in this work, like you can only move as fast as the relationship lets you, you know, as the speed of trust, as some people say. And so it's building those relationships that does take time, but it's what allows us to have the impact that we're aspiring to have.
One of the first things we did is we consulted with stakeholders. We probably interviewed 60 key leaders in our sector, and there was such clear advice that they gave us. One is signal our intention through action. Like, do things differently, take risks, center the needs of Black and Indigenous people. Flow funds to the grassroots. That came out loud and clear. What we learned was if we evaluated for learning as opposed to addressing key metrics, checkboxing metrics, did this grantee achieve this or achieve that, then we would allow them to reflect on what they learned, pivot, and create a more impactful program. But we tend to take a more holistic view. It's the combination of the solutions these grants have advanced that then leads to long-term impact and systems change.
The boards embraced that perspective on learning as well. We brought in trainers, experts, knowledge keepers from different communities with different technical expertise to help the board continue on its own learning journey. Our partners as well, grantees, talking to the board, so we all get a deeper understanding of the work on the ground, and we're seeing how that has shifted our strategy. It's allowed us to be more responsive and flexible in responding to what the communities we serve are needing and what they're aspiring to build. Oftentimes in our sector, people talk about learning and evaluation, and that's really commonly from the perspective of how do we evaluate our grantees, right? How do we evaluate the work that they're doing to know it's worth the money or it's having the impact that they said it would have? But for us, what we really think a lot about at the foundation, which I think is so important, is that evaluation to really learn about our own practices, to question the way that we work. Even how I know the staff team, the grant application process has evolved so much. The way we seek information or build relationships has evolved because we're committed to hearing from our partners, because we build relationships, we listen, we learn, and we commit to doing differently.
When we know better, we do better.
There's a lot of challenges facing philanthropy and facing our society right now. Things like rising inequality and financial insecurity. People are struggling to keep their homes. They're struggling to feed themselves, and there's real deep-seated challenges in our country. And I think philanthropy has a really important role in addressing those things.
The other thing, Justin, for me is it's been years since that underfunded report has been published, like I'd say maybe 4 or 5 years. That brought to light the issues of lack of funding, but we're nowhere closer. We haven't closed that gap. So I feel like that is still one of the bigger challenges where Black people, Indigenous communities, racialized people like in the North, the whole notion of access to capital. And I'm not just talking philanthropic capital, which the underfunded report shone a light on, but we're talking of access to financial services. Those that are furthest behind, Black, Indigenous, racialized people can't get this kind of access, and capital is needed to make a life and thrive in our society.
As a foundation, we have so much different ways in which we can have an impact, right? So of course our grant making is important, but we dug into some really interesting conversations as a board around our investments. How do we think differently about what good can be done through our investment? We made a commitment as a board as well about not existing by design forever, that we were going to embrace new ideas, we're going to embrace big bets. And we also knew that we had a role as a foundation to talk about our work. As we're learning, as we're investing in communities, how can we share that with others so other foundations can learn alongside us? Because we can't do this work alone.
That's right. And there's some things we were naturally good at, like we can convene, we've got skills in the team, we can support more research, we have thought leadership. But the one area I remember the board really pushing us on is saying, you've got to do public policy and advocacy if you really want to do systems change. And we've got to put that in. You've got to learn how to do it. And now we're trying to build our muscles to do that as well. The other imperative that came up for us was around collaborative innovation. And, in order to get to that place, I remember we again consulted. We spoke to leaders of philanthropic organizations and said, what's the most catalytic thing you've done? And 2 things really surfaced from those conversations. One was do more pooled funding initiatives, because when you're pooling your money together to drive at something, the impact would be much deeper. And then the second thing they said is if you really want to address a challenge, bring the people together that understand the problem or have a stake in the problem. Ask them what is needed to address this challenge, and whatever they say, fund it. And that's how we got to our collaborative innovation imperative. And then I remember one of the other board members said, all these are great, but you cannot do it if you don't enhance your organization. And so we added that Fort Collaborative to build our organization, enhance it, and we've done different things, you know, through our grants management system, process pieces, building in external advisors, really building out, again, all the pieces we need, the foundational pieces that's going to lift up and give longevity to everything we want to do.
Yeah. I think what's been so exciting to see in how the organization's evolved is, you know, bringing different expertise in all different ways to the work, right? The staff team that you've built brings such different but complementary expertise and skill sets. We've expanded our board with folks from different regions of the country with different knowledge and experiences. We're bringing fellows on to support us in really key areas that we're doubling down on. As an organization, we've really embraced this idea that we can bring people together across the areas that we're focused on to really have an impact. And we can do that in really creative and interesting ways.
So I've always said from the beginning, you know, I'd ask the board, do you want to be a grant-making organization? Do you want to be a philanthropic organization? And to me, as a grant-making organization, your role is to disperse grants and do it well. But as a philanthropic organization with that mindset, now you're looking at what other tools and assets do I have that I can leverage?
One of the most exciting parts of how the foundation's evolved in such a short period of time is a real recognition that we can do more when we leverage all that we can do. So yes, we're making impactful grants, we're diving into impact investing, we're supporting partners and doing convening ourselves, we're stepping into thought leadership and looking to shift policy. There's so much that we can do as a philanthropic organization when we bring all of that together, aligned to our mission and aligned to our values.
We're committed to advancing equity and justice, and we remain committed to advancing equity and justice no matter what's going on around us. So I think that's really critical. I think taking a holistic approach to philanthropy, a lot of times you're a grant maker, you're going to use your grant making assets. You're a philanthropic organization, you're going to use all your assets.
Using all of our capital has been such an exciting development for the foundation. You know, when we first started, people were apprehensive. They didn't know, what does that mean? We've been able to evolve, and we've been able to now move all sorts of capital and our human resources, our people, all aligned to our mission and vision. Our mindset has shifted and evolved as we've learned. There's a few things that I think have really enabled us to think and do more deeply and to drive that impact. We're not limited in thinking by the disbursement quota. It's important, you know, we do need to meet that as a minimum, but it's not what constrains our thinking, it's the minimum for us. And we look to do much more. We embrace the idea of big bets. We think about what can we do that really pushes us further. As a philanthropic organization, as a foundation, as a capital holder, we have so much power and privilege, and it's on us to use that for good, aligned to our values, you know, and not be shy about it. You know, I think as a foundation that's not afraid to speak out about the things that we're committed to, that can help bring others along. And in a time now where people their perspectives are shifting, people are pulling back, now is the most important time for us to step up. And to take risks, you know, we have to act with courage. We can't shy away from difficult conversations, and we have to remain committed to our partners.
So last year was a great year, 2024. We actually embarked on our very first strategic plan. The board and staff came together, and it was such a collaborative moment, and I loved how we got to the place where we got to. And one of the questions I remember we really grappled with and asked ourselves is, what must we do to advance this bold vision and mission? And there were 4 clear things that came out. One was, as you recall, flowing resources to underserved communities.
Yeah, and it's been really interesting to see how that's shifted our work already, you know, really doubling down in regions of the country where we know philanthropy is not showing up as deeply as it can. But also recognizing that we don't know what we don't know. And so we needed to learn more, build relationships in regions of the country to tell us more about how we need to show up.
And as a result, we commissioned that Data for Good report. Now we know that there's real philanthropic gaps in the North, and now we're starting to do research on that piece of work.
Philanthropy is dealing with some really complex challenges right now, and our society is navigating really difficult situations. Rising inequality, financial insecurity, in our world, in our society, many people unfortunately can't afford homes anymore. They're struggling to feed themselves and their families. Our world is evolving, our society is changing. All of these issues are interconnected. Certain communities experience disproportionate effects of climate change or of food insecurity. And so, in the North, Indigenous communities are feeling the repercussions of climate change at disproportional levels, and are also the ones who are contributing the least to the issues that cause climate change in the first place.
Challenges are so complex. We're facing many different things, whether it's climate, economics, health crisis, and philanthropy has a role in addressing these challenges. So now we've got to really come together. We've got to listen to our partners. We've got to take the lead from those that are around us. We've been at this for like 3 years now. And when we first started, we always said we're going to go broad and then we're going to narrow down, because we wanted to learn by doing. And we've always been that way. We do, we learn, we adapt. So we went super broad in terms of the solutions we wanted to advance. We knew we had 3 areas. We wanted to advance equity and justice in health and climate, socioeconomic barriers Black, Indigenous, racialized people are facing. And then we said, okay, we're going to do that through the 3 impact areas of thriving communities, livable planet, and healthy people. Then we developed 5 outcomes and like 13 solutions we wanted to drive towards. And we said, let's learn. Where's their momentum? Where's their traction? Where is it our unique niche because someone else isn't actually funding it as much? And given our commitment to underserved populations, what makes most sense? What is relevant to all the populations that we want to serve? So we are now at this cusp where we're like, okay, we're now seeing themes emerge, we're seeing things that are relevant. And I think over the course of next year, we're going to start narrowing down and back it up with everything we've got. 2 to 3 key areas that we will then put everything behind 100% to go deep into the issues and make a dent to create the change we want to see.
I remember those conversations we had at the board level. It's allowed us to really refine and deepen our commitment to certain places and certain communities where others are not necessarily showing up, or where we believe we can really make a dent, where we can really have a long-term impact. As a board as well, we're always thinking about the role that the foundation plays and why it exists and how long should it exist. And those are ongoing conversations that we don't shy away from at the board level, right? We're always open to thinking differently about what we do, how we do it. The role of the foundation is not to exist forever for forever's sake, and we embrace bringing forward big new ideas that may change and shift the direction of the foundation.
So we really want to say thank you on behalf of the foundation. We've said it numerous times, but truly we could not have built this foundation without the support of so many of you. Even when I started, like 60 people who committed to having 1-hour conversations to be able to really help us become the foundation we are today, and not being shy, being committed to the work that we're doing, and all our partners whose belief in us allowed us to work with them, was patient with us in the beginning when we're still developing our processes. We're so grateful that you were all alongside us in our journey, and the journey hasn't finished yet. So big thanks for now, and really looking forward to continuing working with everyone.
Yeah, and I want to thank the founding board members of the foundation who embraced a vision that really stretched them, that required them to step into an area that they didn't know a whole lot about. And they did so with a keen commitment to learning. I want to thank the Definity Insurance Company for their ongoing partnership and support that they've provided to the foundation to do this exciting and impactful work. I want to thank the staff, and I want to thank Arti, who's really worked alongside the board to build a vision for a foundation that's going to achieve and is already achieving really transformative things. I want to thank our peers in philanthropy who ask us questions all the time, who are eager to learn from us, but more importantly, who are willing and committed to sharing with us as well.
Yeah, if not for them at the very beginning, sharing their policies, sharing how they do things, was really open, and even sharing like their grant applications, and really pushing us to think differently. If not for their unwavering commitment to our foundation and our own growth as an organization, we probably would not have achieved a lot of the things we have to date. And once again, to the incredible staff team that we have developed, their passion, unwavering commitment to this job is par none. I have not seen anything like that in my lifetime, and I'm very, very grateful to their continued work in this foundation.